We started Christ for Humanity as a result of a family vacation we took in 1989. And that vacation was on the Copper Canyon Railroad. It is a very famous railroad which was built between Chihuahua, Mexico, and to go over the Sierra Madre Mountains in the Copper Canyon area. It was an incredible trip, but what really surprised me was the depth of poverty we saw among the Indians. And what was interesting was the fact that they spoke their own language, their culture was very strong, they really hadn't been penetrated by Christianity. We found the trip incredibly inspiring, but when we got back to Tulsa, Tina, my heart was broken for those Indians, the condition they had.
Well, one of the great tragedies is that the parents of the Indian children didn't name their babies until the age of 2 because so many of them died before they reached that age due to malnutrition, diarrhea, any number of illnesses that would be easily remedied here in the United States.
When we returned, our church was having a missions conference. I asked a number of the missionaries who I thought might be aware of outreaches or missionaries who were trying to reach these Indians, but none of them were aware of anything like that. We started organizing trips which were taken from here in Tulsa, and we were able to get some doctors and dentists and so on. And then we had some work teams come, and at the same time we made contacts with some of the hospitals here in Tulsa, and we started moving equipment which was no longer used here in Tulsa down to Mexico. I can distinctly remember the call that God put on my life, on my heart, to be involved in missions. And I finally submitted to that, but it didn't happen until about 20 years ago with all of these things that I'm describing. And we organized Christ for Humanity. For the first few years, Christ for Humanity was exclusively international. We packed a lot of containers, most of which went to Russia. But there was something missing. And my good friend Steve Gregg, who at that time was our missionary in Russia, told me one day, he said, "Mark, you're really making a mistake." And boy, that got my attention. And he said, "You're not having a spiritual ministry. You're packing containers, and sure, you pray over them, but you have the most important thing you could do is missing." And that was a spiritual ministry.
Well, when we first decided to get involved in local ministry with the Tulsa Housing Authority, one of the important aspects of the ministry we wanted to have there was to not just be a provider of food, but to enlist the help of area churches to come to those facilities and to actually minister to the handicapped and to the poor and to the mentally ill people that live there. Our desire is that over time these churches would develop even more programs within the Housing Authority facility with which they are connected. Christ for Humanity's role would be to facilitate the adoption process and to provide food once a month for the residents of the given facility.
I'd like to tell you about what I think is probably the best kept secret in Christendom within Tulsa. and that is our Adopt a Facility program. There are 18 Tulsa Housing Authority projects, and we are currently making food distributions and proclamation of the gospel in 11 of those 18 on a monthly basis. Incorporated in that effort are 8 different churches. Within Adopt a Facility, they are standing shoulder to shoulder